Your soulmate took the blame for someone you love. Now they're begging to tell you everything. My beloved child, something has been hidden from you, and the truth is far more unexpected than you were ever allowed to believe. Your soulmate has been carrying the weight of a secret that never truly belonged to them. They accepted the blame for something connected to someone you deeply love, and for a long time, they stayed silent because they believed telling you the truth would change the way you looked at that person forever. But something has shifted. Your soulmate can no longer pretend that silence is protecting you. There is one detail you were never told, one conversation you never heard, and one decision made behind your back that explains why your soulmate suddenly appeared guilty when, deep inside, they knew the entire story was different. Don't skip, because the reason they accepted that blame is going to completely change what you thought happened between you. They didn't stay quiet because they had nothing to say. They stayed quiet because someone they knew you cared about looked directly at them and asked for something almost impossible: please don't tell them it was me. And your soulmate made a choice in that moment. They decided they would rather let you misunderstand them than watch your heart become divided between two people you loved. But they never expected that one choice to create so much distance. They never expected you to remember their silence as proof. And they certainly never expected the real truth to return now, when everything is already beginning to change. What happened afterward is the part your soulmate has replayed again and again. Every time they wanted to explain themselves, they stopped. Every time they imagined telling you, they remembered the promise they had made. Yet recently, something happened that made keeping that promise almost impossible. The person they protected said something that completely changed the situation. Your soulmate realized they had been protecting a version of the story that was no longer fair to you. And now they are begging for one chance to tell you everything, not because they want sympathy, but because there is something you deserve to know. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate remembers the exact moment you looked at them differently. They noticed the questions in your eyes. They knew you were waiting for an explanation, and still they gave you almost nothing. Imagine how difficult that silence became when they knew a few sentences could have cleared their name. But here is where everything turns. They weren't only protecting someone you love. They were protecting you from learning why that person made the decision in the first place. That reason is the secret beneath the secret. And when your soulmate finally discovered the complete reason themselves, even they were stunned. Suddenly, old conversations made sense. Strange timing made sense. Even the distance between you and your soulmate began to look completely different. What seemed like rejection may have been sacrifice. What seemed like guilt may have been loyalty. And what seemed like the end of your connection may have been one person quietly accepting the consequences of something they never actually did. But now the silence is breaking, because your soulmate has reached a point where losing your trust feels heavier than breaking an old promise. They have been imagining the moment they finally stand before you and say, "There is something you were never told about me." Yet those are only the opening words. Don't skip, because what comes after them changes everything. They want to tell you who asked them to stay silent. They want to explain exactly what happened before they accepted the blame. Most importantly, they want you to understand why they chose your peace over their own reputation. But there is one final piece they still don't know how to reveal, because the person they protected apparently left behind something that could confirm the truth without your soulmate needing to convince you of anything. Something huge is waiting for you, because this is no longer simply their word against someone else's. There is a detail that only 3 people were supposed to know, and somehow, that detail is about to reach you. Your soulmate knows that once you discover it, you may look back at everything differently: the silence, the distance, the unanswered questions, and every moment you wondered why they didn't fight harder to make you believe them. They were fighting. You simply couldn't see what they were fighting to protect. And now, after all this time, the question is no longer whether your soulmate will tell you the truth. The question is what you will discover when they finally reveal who they took the blame for, and why that person never wanted you to know. The truth began moving toward you long before your soulmate found the courage to speak. And that is exactly why everything feels different now. My beloved child, there was a moment your soulmate realized the secret could no longer remain buried, not because somebody forced them to confess, but because they discovered one missing detail that changed the meaning of everything. Don't skip. The person your soulmate protected had apparently known much more than they admitted, and your soulmate only learned this after remembering a conversation that once seemed completely ordinary. One sentence suddenly stood out: "If they ever learn why I did it, they'll never see me the same way again." Your soulmate had believed they were simply protecting someone you love from embarrassment and disappointment. But now they understood something deeper had been hidden even from them. That realization shook everything they thought they knew. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate started going back through every memory: the day they accepted the blame, the strange silence afterward, the way that person avoided certain questions, and most importantly, the way they repeatedly asked whether you still trusted your soulmate. Why would that matter so much? That was the question your soulmate could no longer ignore. And suddenly, the possibility appeared that taking the blame had not simply protected someone else, it may have unintentionally created exactly the distance somebody expected between you and your soulmate. Then came the discovery your soulmate never expected. There was an old message connected to what happened, and your soulmate had completely forgotten it existed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't long. But it contained one sentence that could completely change your understanding of the past. Your soulmate stared at those words because they realized something unbelievable: the message had been written before they agreed to take responsibility. That meant the real situation had already been discussed while you were still unaware of everything. Don't skip, because this is where your soulmate's silence begins to make heartbreaking sense. They had been told that revealing the truth would place you in the middle of a painful choice. So they accepted being misunderstood because they thought eventually everything would settle and you would be happier never knowing. But it didn't settle. You became distant. Your soulmate watched that distance grow while knowing exactly what could explain it, yet they continued protecting the promise. Now they understand that silence didn't protect your peace, it prevented you from making your own decision. And that realization has changed them. For the first time, they are preparing to tell you everything exactly as it happened, without hiding the uncomfortable details and without trying to control how you respond. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is still one question they cannot answer: why did the person you love need your soulmate specifically to carry the blame? Why not simply stay silent? Why make your soulmate appear responsible? The answer may be connected to something that person already knew about how deeply your soulmate cared for you, and now your soulmate is standing emotionally at the edge of a confession they have postponed for far too long. They have imagined every possible reaction from you, disbelief, surprise, silence, even the possibility that you might need time before saying anything at all. But there is one reaction they secretly hope for, that you finally understand why they never defended themselves properly. Stay till the end, because the biggest revelation has not arrived yet. Your soulmate is about to explain that when they accepted the blame, they were given a promise in return. They were told that eventually the truth would be revealed to you when the timing was right. Your soulmate waited. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Still, nothing happened. And then they learned something that made them realize the promised confession might never come. That is why they are begging to speak now. Not tomorrow. Not someday when everything feels easier. Now. Because the old message they discovered contains something else, something they missed the first time they read it. Near the end is a sentence referring directly to you, and it suggests that you were never as unaware of the situation as everyone assumed. Your soulmate has begun wondering whether you noticed something back then but never had enough information to understand it. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next truth is not only about who your soulmate protected. It is about what that person believed would happen if you and your soulmate learned the full truth at the same time. And once your soulmate finally reveals that, the entire story you thought you knew may turn completely upside down. The one detail nobody expected has finally surfaced, and your soulmate now understands why the truth was kept away from you for so long. Why, beloved child, this was never only about protecting someone you love. There was another reason hidden underneath everything, and when your soulmate finally connected the pieces, they sat in complete silence because the truth changed the meaning of the past. Don't skip, because this is where everything you thought you understood begins to turn. The person your soulmate protected apparently knew how strongly your soulmate felt about you. They knew your soulmate would never willingly place you in the middle of a painful situation, and that knowledge became the reason your soulmate was asked to carry the blame. Your soulmate was told, if you explain what really happened, they'll have to choose who to believe. Those words stayed with them. They imagined you questioning someone you loved. They imagined you feeling torn between trust and loyalty. So they made the choice that seemed simplest at the time: let themselves be misunderstood. But here is the revelation they never expected: the person they protected may have believed your soulmate would eventually walk away after taking the blame. They assumed the misunderstanding would become permanent. Yet your soulmate never truly stopped caring about you. Even when there was distance, even when they couldn't explain themselves, a part of them kept hoping that one day you would learn there was more to the story. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because that day may have arrived through the one thing nobody remembered was still there, the old message. Your soulmate went back to that message and read it differently this time. Every sentence suddenly carried another meaning. There was a reference to a conversation that happened before the misunderstanding, and your name was mentioned in a way your soulmate had overlooked. Don't skip. The message suggested that the person you love had already noticed something changing between you and your soulmate. They had noticed the connection becoming stronger. They had noticed that your soulmate was beginning to imagine a real future with you. And then came the sentence that made your soulmate finally understand why they had been chosen to take responsibility: they will forgive you faster than they will forgive me. Your soulmate read those words again and again. Suddenly, everything became clear. Someone had counted on the depth of your feelings. They believed your bond with your soulmate could survive the misunderstanding eventually, while your relationship with the person you loved might not survive the truth. Your soulmate had unknowingly been placed between two relationships, and they chose to protect yours with that person at the expense of their own connection with you. But there is another twist. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has now realized that the person they protected may have regretted that decision almost immediately. There were signs, unfinished conversations, strange attempts to bring up your soulmate, questions about whether you still thought about them. At the time, none of it made sense. Now it does. That person may have been searching for a way to correct everything without admitting what they had originally asked your soulmate to do, and this is why your soulmate is begging to tell you everything now. They no longer want you to receive pieces of the truth from memories, half-finished conversations, or messages written long ago. They want you to hear the complete story from beginning to end. Stay till the end, because the next part changes the question completely. Your soulmate isn't asking you to immediately believe them. They aren't asking you to forget how their silence made you feel. They only want you to know what happened before you decide what their silence meant. Because there is still one thing they have not told you: on the day they agreed to take the blame, the person you love gave them something, a small piece of proof that was supposed to remain hidden unless the truth ever became necessary. Your soulmate kept it. For all this time, they kept it exactly where nobody would accidentally find it. They believed they would never need to show you. But now they have taken it out again, and what it contains could answer the question that has followed this entire story: who was actually responsible for what happened? Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has finally decided that protecting the past cannot be more important than giving you the truth. And when they place that proof in front of you, there will be one detail on it that even your soulmate never noticed until now, a detail suggesting that someone else knew about the secret from the very beginning. The proof was supposed to answer everything, but instead it opened a question your soulmate was never prepared to ask. My beloved child, when they looked at that hidden piece of evidence again, they noticed something so small that it had escaped them for all this time, a detail connected to another person who apparently knew what had happened before your soulmate ever agreed to take the blame. Don't skip, because this changes the entire timeline. Your soulmate had always believed the secret belonged to only three people: themselves, the person they protected, and eventually you. But that was never completely true. Someone else had been close enough to know what was happening, and instead of revealing it, they remained silent too. Your soulmate began remembering little moments that once meant nothing: a strange question, an interrupted conversation, a look exchanged across a room. Suddenly those memories were no longer random. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate now realizes there may have been a chance for the truth to reach you much earlier, but somebody deliberately decided it wasn't their place to speak. And that means your soulmate wasn't the only person watching you believe an incomplete version of the story, but the biggest surprise came when your soulmate finally spoke to that person. They expected denial. Instead, they heard a sentence that changed everything: "I wondered when you would finally notice." Don't skip. Your soulmate immediately asked the question they had been carrying for so long: why didn't you tell them? The answer was simple but powerful. They had been waiting for the person your soulmate protected to tell you themselves. Everyone believed the truth would eventually come out naturally. Everyone thought there would be another opportunity. But time kept moving, and every day of silence made the confession harder. Then your soulmate learned something even more surprising. There had actually been an attempt to tell you once before. You were closer to discovering everything than you ever realized. A conversation had been planned. Words had been prepared. But at the final moment, fear took over and the truth remained hidden. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has now learned what that unfinished confession was supposed to contain. It wasn't simply, your soulmate didn't do it. There was another sentence after that, one explaining why your soulmate agreed to carry the blame even though they knew it could cost them your trust. And when your soulmate heard those words repeated back to them, they realized their deepest reason had been understood all along. They cared more about protecting your heart than protecting the way you saw them. Now everything has reached the moment your soulmate tried to avoid for so long. They know the truth cannot remain divided between different people anymore. Stay till the end, because what happens next could completely rewrite the story between you. Your soulmate is ready to tell you what they accepted, what they sacrificed, what they were promised, and why they remained silent even when that silence pushed you further away. But there is one final revelation they weren't expecting. The other person who knew the secret remembered something about the day everything happened, something your soulmate themselves had forgotten. Just before your soulmate agreed to take responsibility, the person you love apparently said something about your future. Don't skip. Those words are why your soulmate made the decision so quickly. They believed your happiness depended on keeping the truth hidden. But now they understand something completely different. Your happiness should never have been decided for you. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate is no longer protecting the secret. They are preparing to give you the missing piece and let you decide what everything means. And once you hear the exact words spoken that day, you may finally understand why your soulmate accepted a blame that was never theirs, and why they have been waiting all this time for one chance to look at you and finally say, "Now you know why I stayed silent." The words spoken that day were finally repeated exactly as your soulmate remembered them, and suddenly the sacrifice behind their silence became impossible to ignore. My beloved child, the person you love had looked at your soulmate and said, if they know everything right now, they may lose something they can never get back. That sentence became the reason your soulmate made their choice. They believed they were protecting your future, your peace, and your relationship with someone important to you. But they understand now that they were given only part of the truth before making that decision. Don't skip, because this is where the secret beneath everything finally begins to open. Your soulmate discovered that the situation they accepted responsibility for had started much earlier than they were told. There had been another conversation, another decision, another moment when everything could have been stopped. And the person you love had apparently carried regret about it ever since. Your soulmate wasn't chosen because they were easy to blame, they were chosen because everyone knew one thing about them: when it came to you, they would put your feelings before their own. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate has finally realized that their greatest act of loyalty became the very thing that made you question their loyalty. Then something happened that removed the final reason for their silence. The person your soulmate protected finally admitted that the promise should never have lasted this long. There was no dramatic excuse, only a truth that had become heavier with time: I should have told them myself. Your soulmate had waited so long to hear those words that, when they finally came, they didn't know whether to feel relieved or heartbroken. Don't skip. They asked the question that had been following them through every quiet moment, then why didn't you? And the answer changed everything. The person you love had seen how much distance the misunderstanding created between you and your soulmate. At first, they thought revealing the truth later would repair everything. But the longer they waited, the more afraid they became that you would ask why they allowed your soulmate to carry the blame for so long. So one silence created another, and another, until everyone was trapped inside a story nobody knew how to correct. But your soulmate has finally stepped outside of it. They are no longer waiting for the perfect moment. Something huge is waiting for you, because they have decided you deserve the truth even if that truth changes every relationship involved. And there is one thing they desperately need you to understand: they never wanted you to think less of them. Every time you pulled away, they wanted to explain. Every time they saw uncertainty in your eyes, they almost broke their promise. They stayed quiet because they believed one day the person they protected would find the courage to make things right. But there is still one final revelation your soulmate has been struggling to say aloud, because it changes this from a story about blame into something much deeper. My beloved child, while protecting someone you love, your soulmate made a private decision about you. They promised themselves that if the truth ever came out, they would not use it to demand anything from you. No immediate forgiveness. No instant trust. No reward for what they sacrificed. They only wanted you to finally have the missing information and choose for yourself. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The proof, the old message, the unfinished confession, and the person who knew all point toward the same truth. Your soulmate carried something that was never theirs because they believed losing your trust temporarily was better than watching you lose someone you loved forever. But they never imagined temporarily would become this long. Now they are begging to tell you everything because there is nothing left to protect except the truth itself. And just when your soulmate thought the story was finally complete, the person they protected revealed one last thing, something your soulmate had never known. Before asking them to take the blame, that person had already prepared a message for you explaining everything. The message was never delivered. It still exists. And inside it is the one sentence your soulmate has waited all this time for you to see. The sentence that could prove they were telling you the truth from the very beginning. The message that never reached you is finally about to speak for everyone who stayed silent. My beloved child, your soulmate expected it to contain an explanation, but they were not prepared for the first line. If you are reading this, then someone protected me longer than I deserved. Your soulmate froze, because those words confirmed something they had carried alone for far too long. Don't skip. The message had been written before the misunderstanding grew into distance, which meant the truth had existed from the beginning. It explained that your soulmate had not created the situation, had not asked to become part of it, and had only stepped forward when someone you loved asked them to keep you from being pulled into the middle. But then came the line that changed the meaning of everything. They agreed because I told them this would protect your future. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate finally understood that their choice had been built on a promise that was never guaranteed. They had sacrificed your trust believing the truth would reach you later, but later kept being postponed until silence became its own story. And now, for the first time, your soulmate has something stronger than their own explanation. They have the words of the very person they protected. But your soulmate kept reading, and the next part surprised them even more. The message admitted that the person you love had noticed how deeply your soulmate cared about you. They had seen it in the way